Dutton Ranch Episode 6 takes a major step forward in developing the season's central conflicts while quietly setting up several storylines that are likely to have significant consequences in the episodes ahead. Although the episode doesn't rely heavily on action, it successfully builds tension through character interactions, hidden motives, and growing rivalries, making it one of the most important chapters of the season so far. The story primarily focuses on the evolving partnership between Beth Dutton and Beulah Jackson, Rob Will's increasingly dangerous behavior following his escape from rehab, and the emotional struggles facing Carter as he continues to deal with the aftermath of Dwight's death. The episode opens at 10 Dutton Ranch, where Rip Wheeler begins settling into his responsibilities after Beth's successful agreement with Beulah Jackson. The arrival of a new herd of Black Angus cattle represents the first major step in Beth's plan to transform the ranch into a premium beef operation capable of attracting high-end buyers. Rip, along with Zach and Azul, works on branding the cattle, but even during these routine ranch activities, the show hints at deeper tensions. Azul clearly feels uncomfortable working on Jackson land and even suggests that his late father would be furious if he knew where he was. While the series doesn't fully explain the source of this resentment, it strongly implies that there is a long and complicated history between Azul's family and the Jacksons. Given how carefully the writers have planted these hints, it seems likely that this conflict will become much more important as the season progresses. At the same time, Carter continues to struggle emotionally after losing Dwight. Unlike many television dramas that portray grief through dramatic outbursts, Dutton Ranch takes a more realistic approach by showing Carter withdrawing into himself and refusing to discuss what he's feeling. Rip notices something is wrong and attempts to reach out, but Carter avoids the conversation. His inability to express his emotions highlights the confusion and uncertainty he feels as he tries to figure out his place in the world. Having lost both of his biological parents at a young age, Carter has spent much of his life fighting simply to survive. Now that he finally has a home with Beth and Rip, he faces a completely different challenge: understanding who he wants to become. This emotional struggle becomes especially clear during his fishing trip with Oreana. For perhaps the first time since Dwight's death, Carter allows himself to be vulnerable. He admits that he feels lost and uncertain about his future, and eventually confesses that he has developed feelings for Oreana. Her response is surprisingly mature. Rather than encouraging him or rejecting him outright, she explains that neither of them truly understands what love means yet. The moment feels genuine because it reflects the uncertainty that often comes with young relationships. However, before the conversation can continue, Oreana receives a mysterious message that immediately changes her mood. The episode never reveals who contacted her, but the scene strongly suggests that whatever information she received will play a significant role in future episodes. While Carter and Oreana struggle with questions about identity and belonging, Beulah Jackson finds herself revisiting unresolved emotions from her past. Following her growing connection with McKinney, she appears happier and more relaxed than at any previous point in the series. Their relationship continues to develop after the emotional revelations of earlier episodes, and Beulah even invites him to accompany her to the celebration commemorating the 190th anniversary of 10 Dutton Ranch. Yet beneath this seemingly hopeful development lies a series of unanswered questions. References to a lost son named Levi and hints about Beulah's complicated personal history continue to raise speculation about events that occurred long before the current story began. These mysteries remain unresolved, but the writers clearly intend for them to become increasingly important. The business side of the story takes center stage when Beth and Beulah travel to meet hospitality executive Zane Nash. Understanding that success depends on more than simply selling a product, Beth carefully researches Zane's background before the meeting. She learns about his rise from humble beginnings and recognizes that he values personal stories just as much as financial opportunities. During the meeting, Beth presents a convincing argument for why 10 Dutton Ranch can provide superior beef while eliminating unnecessary middlemen. However, she quickly realizes that Zane is interested in something larger than profit margins. He wants authenticity, heritage, and a compelling story that can be marketed alongside the product. This is where Beulah proves her value. She recounts the history of her ancestors, describing how Irish immigrants survived hardship, conflict, and uncertainty to establish what would eventually become the Jackson family legacy. Her story transforms a routine business meeting into something far more powerful. Rather than simply discussing cattle, she presents a narrative of resilience, sacrifice, and survival. By the time she finishes speaking, Zane is clearly impressed. The scene demonstrates why Beth and Beulah are such an effective team. Beth understands business strategy, while Beulah understands how stories influence people. Together, they create an almost irresistible combination. Yet even within this successful partnership, signs of future conflict are beginning to emerge. Beth remains protective of the Dutton name and prefers to keep her family's legacy separate from the Jackson business venture. Beulah, on the other hand, views the Dutton reputation as a valuable asset that can be used whenever necessary. This difference in perspective may seem minor now, but it reveals a fundamental disagreement that could eventually place the two women on opposite sides. The episode's darkest storyline revolves around Rob Will, whose actions become increasingly dangerous following his escape from rehab. Convinced that Joaquin is threatening his claim to the family empire, Rob Will begins manipulating those around him in an effort to eliminate potential obstacles. His primary target becomes Chet, a man whose loyalty makes him vulnerable to exploitation. Rather than directly ordering Chet to attack Joaquin, Rob Will carefully appeals to his emotions, convincing him that violence is necessary to protect what belongs to them. The manipulation is disturbingly effective, and Chet ultimately agrees to carry out the attack. The plan quickly falls apart. When Chet confronts Joaquin outside the Jackson estate, he manages only to wound him before Miguel intervenes. Acting without hesitation, Miguel shoots and kills Chet, ending the confrontation almost as quickly as it began. On the surface, Chet's death appears to be the result of a failed assassination attempt. However, there is reason to believe that Rob Will may have intended for this outcome all along. Chet possessed dangerous knowledge about several crimes and had already demonstrated a willingness to blackmail people. From Rob Will's perspective, he may have become a liability rather than an ally. If that theory proves correct, then Rob Will effectively sacrificed Chet in order to protect himself. Following the shooting, Joaquin is forced to explain the situation to Rip Wheeler. Although he admits certain facts, it becomes obvious that he is withholding important information. His partial honesty suggests that he is attempting to protect not only himself, but also the larger secrets surrounding the Jackson family. Unfortunately, every lie creates new complications, and the more information Joaquin conceals, the more likely it becomes that the truth will eventually surface. The most significant moment of the episode arrives during a private conversation between Beth and Beulah. What initially appears to be a casual discussion gradually reveals itself as a strategic exchange in which both women are attempting to evaluate one another. Beulah asks carefully chosen questions and shares personal stories, but her true objective is gathering information. The conversation takes a dramatic turn when she mentions Jamie Dutton's disappearance. Although she never directly accuses Beth of anything, the implication is clear. Beulah knows enough about the Dutton family to suspect that Jamie's fate was not as simple as the public believes. This revelation instantly changes the dynamic between the two women. Beth realizes that Beulah has been investigating her and may possess information that could become dangerous in the future. At the same time, Beulah appears to recognize qualities in Beth that remind her of herself. Both women are fiercely protective of their families, highly intelligent, and willing to cross moral boundaries when necessary. These similarities create mutual respect, but they also create risk. History has shown that people who are most alike often become the fiercest rivals. By the end of episode 6, nearly every major storyline has moved into a more dangerous phase. Rob Will continues to spiral toward greater violence. Joaquin is hiding secrets that cannot remain hidden forever. Carter is struggling to find his place in the world. And Beth is beginning to understand that her alliance with Beulah may not last. The episode may not rely on constant action, but it excels at building anticipation for what comes next. More importantly, it establishes that the greatest threat facing the characters may not come from outsiders at all, but from the secrets, ambitions, and rivalries growing within their own families. Thank you for watching.